Do you know what fills an Amish woman's day from before sunrise until long after dark? Modern women juggle careers and households with appliances saving hours daily. Amish women perform relentless manual labor without any modern conveniences, 14 to 16 hours of physical work, 7 days weekly, for decades. This isn't the peaceful domestic life tourists imagine, but exhausting reality that would break most modern women within days. Pre-dawn fire starting. The day begins between 4:30 and 5 a.m. when Amish mothers rise in complete darkness, leaving warm beds to begin work that won't end until 10 or 11 that night. The house is cold, silent, and dark. No automatic thermostats maintaining comfortable temperature, no lights switching on with wall flips, no coffee makers brewing automatically. The first task is starting the wood cook stove from yesterday's cold ashes. Kindling must be arranged carefully, matches struck, and flames coaxed until the fire catches and begins generating heat that will take 30 to 45 minutes to warm the kitchen adequately. While the stove heats, she begins breakfast preparation for a family of 8 to 10 people who will gather within the hour expecting hot food. The table must be set for 10 people. Plates, cups, silverware, napkins, all carried from cupboards and drawers and arranged properly. Juice or milk is poured, butter and jam are set out, and the meal is timed so everything finishes simultaneously and reaches the table hot when the family gathers at 6 or 6:30 a.m. Morning laundry operations. Monday brings the week's most physically demanding task, washing laundry for a family of 8 to 10 people, a job consuming 6 to 8 hours of exhausting manual labor that leaves backs aching, hands raw, and bodies completely drained. Water heating begins immediately after breakfast. Multiple large pots are filled and set on the wood cook stove to heat a process taking over an hour to generate enough hot water for washing. While water heats, the woman sorts the mountain of laundry accumulated over the previous week, separating whites from colors, heavily soiled work clothes from regular items, and organizing the loads that will take all day to complete. The washing itself happens in large tubs using manual scrub boards or gas-powered wringer washers that still require constant physical effort. Each item is agitated in hot soapy water, scrubbed on the washboard for stubborn stains, wrung by hand or fed through mechanical wringers, rinsed in clean water, and wrung again. The wet weight of sheets, towels, and clothing is substantial, and lifting, wringing, and manipulating hundreds of pounds of soaked fabric builds arm, shoulder, and back strength while creating chronic pain. Hanging laundry to dry represents another physically demanding stage. Wet items are carried outside to clotheslines or inside to drying racks depending on weather, then hung individually, each piece shaken, smoothed, and pinned or draped to dry properly. A large family generates hundreds of individual items requiring hanging, and the process continues for hours. Weather complicates everything. Rain means no outdoor drying, requiring indoor racks throughout the house, creating humidity, taking days to dry, and limiting space for normal activities. Wind tears improperly secured items from lines. Winter freezing turns clothes stiff on lines, requiring thawing before bringing inside. The woman cannot control weather, but must work around it every single Monday, regardless of conditions. 3 full meals. Beyond Monday's laundry, every single day brings the responsibility of preparing 3 complete meals from scratch for 8 to 10 people, a task consuming 4 to 5 hours daily and requiring constant attention to wood stove fires, timing, and the physical labor of cooking without modern conveniences. Lunch preparation begins around 10:30 a.m. immediately after breakfast cleanup finishes and while laundry or other morning work continues. The meal might include soup simmered on the back of the stove, sandwiches assembled from homemade bread, vegetables from the garden prepared and served, and dessert like pie or cookies baked fresh. Everything is made by hand. No canned soup, no pre-sliced bread, no frozen vegetables, no store-bought desserts. Dinner preparation starts around 3 p.m. for the large evening meal when the family gathers after work. This is the day's most substantial meal meat dishes. Multiple vegetable sides, bread or rolls, and desserts all prepared simultaneously and timed to finish together. A typical dinner might include roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, coleslaw, fresh bread, and pie, every component made from raw ingredients with no shortcuts or convenience items. The cleanup after each meal is as time-consuming as the cooking. Dishes for 10 people mean mountains of plates, cups, silverware, and serving dishes that must be washed by hand in hot water heated on the stove, then dried and put away before the next meal preparation begins. There are no dishwashers, no garbage disposals, and no quick rinses before loading into machines. Every dish is scrubbed by hand, every pot is scoured clean, and every surface is wiped down manually. The cycle repeats 3 times daily, every day of the year, for decades. The woman's life is structured around meal preparation and cleanup in ways that modern women with microwaves, dishwashers, and prepared foods cannot fully comprehend. House cleaning. Beyond cooking and laundry, the house itself requires daily cleaning to maintain the standards expected in Amish households. Work made exponentially more difficult by the complete absence of vacuum cleaners, electric scrubbers, or modern cleaning products that reduce labor. Daily sweeping happens throughout the house using corn brooms or hand brushes to collect dirt, crumbs, and debris from floors that 10 people constantly track across. With no vacuum cleaners, every corner must be swept manually, furniture must be moved to reach underneath, and the collected dirt is swept into dustpans and carried outside rather than sucked into machine bags. Floor washing happens weekly, but in large houses with many children becomes almost continuous. Floors are scrubbed on hands and knees using brushes, buckets of hot water, and homemade soap. The woman moves across floors section by section, scrubbing by hand, wringing out rags, changing dirty water for clean, and ensuring every inch meets cleanliness standards. The work destroys knees and backs over decades of repetition. Bathroom cleaning happens weekly, with particular attention to toilet, sink, and floor areas. Without modern cleaners or tools, the woman uses basic soap and water with substantial elbow grease to maintain sanitation for a large family sharing limited bathroom facilities. The cleaning never ends because the dirt never stops. Children track mud, cooking creates grease and spills, wood stoves create ash and soot, and daily living in farmhouses generates constant mess requiring constant attention, childcare, and supervision constantly. While completing all other work, the Amish mother simultaneously cares for multiple young children, an unending responsibility that cannot be delegated, postponed, or ignored. And that makes every other task more difficult and time-consuming. Infants require feeding every 2 to 3 hours, meaning the mother nurses babies while cooking, cleaning, and working her body, providing nutrition while her hands perform other labor. Toddlers require constant supervision to prevent them from burning themselves on stoves, injuring themselves with tools, or simply creating chaos that disrupts necessary work. Young children need entertainment, education, and emotional support throughout the day. The mother teaches them basic skills, corrects behavior, settles disputes between siblings, and provides the attention that children need to develop properly, all while trying to complete the mountain of work that household operations require. The children are always present. There is no daycare, no preschool, no babysitters providing breaks. When the mother cooks, children play underfoot in the kitchen. When she cleans, they follow, creating new messes. When she works in the garden, toddlers must be watched constantly to prevent them from eating plants, wandering into danger, or hurting themselves. Older daughters help with childcare, but in families with many young children at once, the mother still bears primary responsibility for multiple children simultaneously, while also managing all household operations. The mental load of tracking several children's needs and locations while performing physical labor creates exhaustion beyond the physical work itself. Night doesn't bring relief. Infants wake for feeding, sick children need care, and the mother's sleep is constantly interrupted, while her husband typically sleeps through these nighttime demands, needing rest for his own physically demanding work the next day. Garden work. During the growing season from April through October, the garden becomes another demanding daily responsibility, requiring hours of labor that determines whether the family eats well or poorly through the coming year. Spring planting begins in April with soil preparation, turning over garden plots by hand or with minimal equipment, adding compost and manure, creating rows for different crops, and planting seeds or seedlings for dozens of vegetable varieties. The work is hard. Physical labor, bending, digging, carrying, and planting for hours until the entire garden is established. Summer brings constant maintenance. The garden must be weeded almost daily to prevent unwanted plants from choking out vegetables. Watering happens by hand during dry periods, carrying buckets or managing hoses connected to wells or pumps. The woman walks the garden rows, identifying problems, insect damage, disease, poor growth, and addressing issues before they destroy crops. Harvesting begins in June and continues through October as different vegetables mature. The woman picks produce almost daily during peak season, gathering green beans, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, corn, squash, and countless other vegetables that must be harvested at optimal ripeness. The produce is carried to the house for immediate use or preservation, with timing critical to prevent waste. The physical labor is substantial and repetitive. Hours spent bent over picking beans create back pain. Kneeling to harvest low-growing crops damages knees. Carrying heavy baskets of vegetables strains arms and shoulders. The work happens in summer heat without air conditioning or the option to simply skip days when tired. The garden is not a hobby or leisure activity. It's essential food production that determines the family's nutrition and reduces their need to purchase expensive groceries. Failure to maintain the garden properly means the family goes hungry or spends scarce money on store-bought food that the garden should have provided. Food preservation and canning. The summer and fall harvest doesn't simply feed the family immediately. It must be preserved through canning, drying, and storage to provide food throughout winter and spring. When fresh produce isn't available, creating multi-day preservation marathons that consume entire weeks. Tomato canning might occupy 4 or 5 full days in August. The woman processes hundreds of pounds of tomatoes, washing, blanching to remove skins, chopping or leaving whole, packing into jars, processing in pressure canners or water baths, cooling, and storing the hundreds of jars that will provide tomatoes for the next year's cooking. Green bean canning follows similar patterns with days spent preparing, packing, processing, and storing. The same occurs for corn, pickles, jams, jellies, applesauce, and dozens of other preserved foods that line pantry shelves in abundance that looks impressive to tourists but represents exhausting labor to the woman who produced it. The work is hot, time-sensitive, and demanding. Canners must be monitored constantly to prevent explosions or spoilage. Processing times must be precise to ensure food safety. The kitchen becomes unbearably hot from boiling water and steam on summer days when temperatures already reach the 80s or 90s outside. Drying fruits and vegetables adds another preservation method. Apples are peeled, cored, sliced, and dried. Herbs are harvested, bundled, and hung to dry. Corn is blanched and dried for storage. Each method requires its own labor and attention. The root cellar must be organized and monitored to prevent spoilage of stored vegetables. Potatoes, carrots, beets, turnips, and squash are cleaned, sorted, and arranged in the cool underground space where temperature and humidity must be maintained properly to prevent rot. Sewing, mending, and clothing production. Every piece of clothing worn by every family member is created by the Amish mother's hands using treadle sewing machines that require physical effort to operate foot-powered devices that demand hours of pumping, simultaneously guiding fabric precisely through the machine. Creating a simple dress requires measuring, cutting fabric according to patterns, pinning pieces together, and sewing each seam carefully. A family of 8 to 10 requires constant clothing production, dresses for daughters, shirts and pants for sons and husband, undergarments for everyone. The woman might spend 20 to 30 hours creating a single complex garment like a coat or winter dress. Mending happens continuously as active children tear clothing, seams come apart from wear, and fabric develops holes from use. The woman spends evenings mending by lamplight, patching holes, reattaching buttons, reinforcing weak seams, and extending